It is a great honor to introduce our speaker for today, who is going to talk to us on the topic role of leadership and science diplomacy during COVID-19, a German example. Dr. Balasubramanian Ramani is serving as an advisor and regional coordinator of India relations at the Leibniz University of Hanover, connecting German and Indian students as well as academicians, where he is playing a significant role to strengthen the ties between India and Germany in the field of science and technology. Dr. Ramani has been appointed as one of the directors at Center for Modern Indian Studies and German Research Center for Comparative Vocational Education and Training in the University of Cologne. His primary objective is in this role is to establish research on vocational education and training in India. He has also served as member of the board in World Association of Young Scientists in Paris, France from 2005 to 2009. Dr. Ramani obtained his master's in marine biology as a topper from Annamala University in Tamil Nadu. He further pursued his PhD in marine botany from Leibniz University of Hanover with a scholarship from the government of Lower Saxony, Germany. Dr. Ramani initiated and established the Young Professionals Platform for Agricultural Research, funded by Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, Government of Switzerland in 2005. Dr. Ramani also founded the Indian Academic Society in Leibniz University of Hanover in 2009 and also the Indian Association Hanover in 2011 to address the social, cultural, and educational needs of Indian diaspora and to promote the rich cultural heritage of India and in and around Hanover region. He joined German politics as a member of Socialist Democratic Party in October 2012. He was elected as councillor and member of the City Council for Hanover Central constituency in September 2016. He is also an elected member of the Committee of International Affairs Europe and International Integration for the entire city of Hanover since November 2017. In this role, he is involved in making Hanover an international city in terms of culture, education, as well as promote Hanover as a destination for international students and helping them forge a career and professional success. It's a pleasure to hear from you, sir. We extend a warm welcome to you in the Public Policy Talk series. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Imran, and thanks a lot, Amrit. At the onset, it's a great honor and a pleasure for me to address this august audience. When I was speaking with Professor Kumar and Professor Ranil, I thank both of them for giving me this opportunity. And so I understand that today the MBA, as Amrit said, MBA students, but apart from it, there is a very special class of government officers and senior IAS officers and others. So I think it to be at the onset, I would like to say two things just to make it very clear. Number one is obviously I am not here to compare anything between what's happening in India or Germany, because then it will be very false, because it will be apple and orange, and that's not the case. Number two, I would like to make it clear that one system does not fit all. So what I'm trying to do here is basically to share my experiences, my observations, and what the initiatives that I have seen is successfully implemented in the German context, and also how Germany has played a central role in in terms of devising whole strategy for the European Union. And I think that those are a few points I would like to share with you. To start with, my title we just discussed, and we came up with this title for a simple reason. The first, the current Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, which everybody of you know, one of the long-standing leaders within the European Union countries. Almost she's having 4 terms in Germany, and now this would be her last term. So next year the election will be for German Parliament, and she has already announced she will not be a candidate again. So she will be retiring from politics. So it has been a long time that she has been there and been playing a very central role in terms of Germany for the last, let's say, 2 decades, close to 2 decades, and also European Union. A lot of things has happened. And the second part is also what I would like to address is also the science diplomacy. Why I thought it would be important is because with the COVID-19 crisis at this point of time, everything revolves around science. Apart from the strategy how to, let's say, restrict the spread of the infection or reduce the mortality, everything was at the end of the day, the science and scientific research has to take the very pivotal role. It's normally not the case in most of the times because the policy decisions or the important decisions that are taken by the political system. It's not always in concurrence with what the science in concurrence with what the science and scientific society actually presenting. So in that sense, I thought probably this would be an occasion because both of the things played a very, very important role. Both the scientific, diplomacy, but also at the same time, how the political leadership took confidence and also included, or let's say inclusive approach was practiced from the day one when the crisis actually started. So when I look at the German concept, it was early, if I am end of December, early January, at least the newspapers started to say that there is something happening in China. So there is a kind of, let's say, similar to what the SARS-1 actually happened. And so in Germany, at least, though it was not a sensational news, but at least there was a kind of, let's say, sensitization started to happen within the public. So the people already started to look into it, that they are aware that something is happening, but though no one was really, let's say, into a panic mode, or nobody was not even clear that, they are affected also. Because I was in India at that time in January, for example, I came back mid of January from India. I flew from Chennai. I came back into Hanover. So that time things were not really, any panic was there or anybody, and people were not all about discussing these things, but at least everybody knew that something is happening. Number two, during this time, at least, it was clear for the political leadership, though it was not very visible, but the beauty of it is that the political leadership at that point of time already requested the top research institute for virology in Germany, and also the top scientists who worked on the vaccine for the SARS first one, let's say the one which happened many years before. So these scientists who worked on the vaccine for that, fortunately, those were also in Germany. If you know, there is a very famous institute in Germany called Charité, which is in Berlin, and it is one of the very famous ones, and they were also part of it. So they were already roped in, both as, let's say, somebody who is counseling the political establishment, but at the same time also someone who is giving the scientific advice, and also the way one has to approach the crisis if it is going to come that point of time. I just want to repeat once, at that point of time, it was not at all clear it would be a crisis, because there was no warning from the WHO, or there was no declaration it's an epidemic or pandemic or anything like that. So it all happened quite late. But the planning, I just want to bring here the meticulous planning that happens. Even there was a signal that there could be something coming. It was very sharply taken, and then it was discussed within the political establishment and also further down with the research system, because it was clear that politics alone cannot work on that or can devise anything. It has to be the scientific community that has to come to the central decision making and help this, because they are the ones, the doctors, and also have to give the guidelines what of time showed extremely important leadership skills in making sure that he immediately got all the chief, so it's the same federal system like in India. The chief ministers, they were all to across the table, agree any decisions that's going to be taken always collectively. There will be no decision that will be a central decision and state-wise decision to a certain extent till the situation is getting, let's say, half normal, whatever months it takes. We all will discuss and finally a decision will be taken and that will be binding for the whole of the country. And the role of the chief ministers or the states is to make sure it is implemented at the state level and also further empowering the communities, the counties, the villages, so that it is basically reaching to the bottom grassroots level. So the signal was given, get started, be prepared, things can come to the worst. So though it was a risky strategy once, you can call it, not knowing how things would develop, already such a detailed planning and meticulous discussions took place. But finally, I think it was the reason, and it was the main reason why Germany today could come off very well with one of the lowest mortality rates. And it also, let's say, intervened in the right way that the infection numbers were really very less, though at certain point in March and April, the infections was rising. Then the system was very well prepared by the time. Why? Because the first strategy was that we should make sure our hospitals are equipped to deal with the crisis at any point of time. Though Germany per se having one of the best healthcare systems, but then they made sure that all the so-called non-emergency operations, non-emergency surgeries, non-emergency things, all were postponed so that they said, now it's not the time. We are only going to focus, the whole country is going to focus only on COVID. And so all the hospitals has to make sure enough intensive beds, enough intensive care is ready. And they also started with a huge construction of hospitals in different places at the same time, even before the whole crisis. They want to make sure that when such a chaotic situation comes, then the people should be 100% sure that they will get the best of the medical facilities and they will be in care. And they also know, like also separate from India or other countries, that here the elderly generation is more in number. That means it was clear at point of time that the elderly weren't affected very much. So that means they have to make sure that these population, elderly population, should be taken care of, and that's the priority. So that we need more intensive beds, we need more ventilators, we need absolutely the top end instruments and top end technology to make sure these elderly people are taken care of, because the risk is very high. And they achieved by latest by June, if I'm right, all in Germany, we had more than 50,000 to 60,000 beds, all equipped with ventilators and high-end technology. So at any point of time, any state, doesn't matter, if there is going to be a sudden outbreak of infection, they were really prepared to make sure every one of them gets the best medical treatment. And the whole thing was caused by the central leadership. And every time when there was a press conference, always the scientists and the researchers, they took the role, assisted by the political establishment. It was not the other way around. The head of the research institute they were giving regular everyday data. And that also I would like to appreciate here, because it was brutally honest by the chancellor and the ministers and the political establishment, but also the doctors and also research institute. They said the numbers open and clear and loud. We are having these numbers today. Today the infection is 1,000 more, 10,000 more. So there clearly the people were prepared, that there was no panic, because they know that they are taken care of, and if they have problems, the medical establishment is ready, and they trusted the medical system and the hospital system so well, there was no panic at all. Of course, on a very let's say lighter side, Germany also faced that at the early, that there was toilet paper in the supermarket, for example. So basically, all the toilet papers were, completely gone, because everybody were. I do not know why. Even today, it was surprising why the toilet papers were so much precious that the complete supermarket were completely wiped off for toilet papers. So they have to bring in a rule by which one family can only get one roll of toilet paper after that for some time. Anyway, that was also sometimes, it's difficult to understand the people. But other than that, the second point, which I found it very, very interesting also in terms of it, is that the supermarkets, the grocery shops, they were never having any distress. There was no issues in terms of the product reaching the shelves of the supermarket, groceries, the pharmacy. It was all functioning very normal from as it was. There was never in the office once people felt that there was a crisis. That was something, again, it was the European Union, and its leadership has to be really appreciated here, because that's the advantages of the European Union, I would say, because the reach and the way the road transport and all the three transports are built. So it was very smooth flowing of products between the European Union. So there was the bureaucracy so the time to make sure that take care of the people, and we should invest too much time in the bureaucracy, filling up of the papers, because European Union is also very, very famous for this bureaucracy of getting forms and applications and everything. You have to do it, and this. That was completely the European Union leaders made a decision, and they made it clear, we are not going to get into the bureaucracy. We will stop that for a while. All the countries have to come together, have to cooperate to make sure. And in that also, Germany played a very central role, being one of the, not one of the, but the important economy of the European Union, and the engine or the motor of the economy. They made it clear that this is something very, very clear for them, that this has to happen if we have to be together. Saying that, the other important thing that was decided also, to make sure that the industry is not suffering. That was also parallelly a decision of the economy. What they did was one of the finest systems, at least I have come across in the world anywhere, the so-called Kurzarbeit in German, which means literally translating. For example, the companies, even they work in half full or they have to close. They don't have to fire. They don't have to dismiss their workers. The company will take care of, let's say, 20 to 30% of the salary of the worker, and rest of that 60, 70% will be paid by the government. That means the company doesn't have the burden of firing their workers during the crisis. But at the same time, the workers are also clear that they don't have to fear for their job. And that was very central for the trade unions and also for the people. And huge amount of money was pumped in, and that was very early decision. There was no political conflict from different parties on this. They said, we have money, we have to use it at this point of time, and we have to make sure that the families and the people who are doing the jobs should feel that they are secure for the peace of the whole. I think that was very, very crucial, so that the industry was also having clear ideas what they have to do, and the workers are also free that there was no real fear behind them that they will be dismissed. And second, what they did was a beautiful thing. Again, the very fast the policy and law was into the German parliament that if you don't have to pay the rent for your accommodation, if you are paying in the house your rent, you don't have to pay for, let's say, for the next 6-7 months, because you are not getting enough salary or you are having lot of other difficulties. So the house owners is banned or barred from asking compulsorily the rent has to be paid. And especially for the students, it was even extended, and students got very special loans which is interest free. And also some states gave actually an allowance, free allowance of, let's say, 200-300 euro to the students, so that the students make sure that, for example, if they are difficult, because most of the students, you have to think, in this ecosystem, most of them don't get money from their family. They work for their own expenses. So the gastronomy, for example, the hotels are closed, the restaurants are closed, almost all the shops are closed. The lockdown is fully implemented. So they have no way they can work for their part-time jobs. So the students were given full financial support, and for this, so that they can really make sure that they don't have to borrow huge amount of sum. But then the government came in and said that you can get 600 euro per month till you want, and you will not have to pay any interest for that. That special law was introduced. And some states even went ahead and they said, okay, we are giving you 200 to 300 euro free of cost. So these are the things that they made sure that different stakeholders and the family, their children, and the family, for example, the people who have to work in home, both the parents and they have got some support again, so that they don't have to go through this whole process of very difficult situation. Once they have to from home, they have to take care of the children because the kindergarten is closed, the school is closed. So there again the government came in and they supported even for that reason as well. So when you look at whole in whole, there are many initiatives that rent parallelly. That is the beauty of it. It's not one after another, because they understood that's not the only stakeholder. It's not the only the industry. They cared for the economy. At the same time, they cared for the people from different stakeholders, so that they made sure everybody felt they are taken care of. Of course, it's not that as if everything worked perfect. I'm not also here to give a messiah that everything worked 100% perfect. No. Recently, you might have seen in Berlin, there was 20,000 people who went onto the streets protesting the whole COVID-19 policy, and then the way they managed the whole system. Many were still protesting that they don't want to wear the masks, for example. Those are things still happening. In a democracy, you have to also handle all these things, but it's not, I would say this is marginal. The overwhelmingly, they felt it was very well managed. It was managed in a way that there was no panic was created. The systems were really, let's say, given time to replenish itself. And finally, I would like to say on this point, whatever the policy the government has made, whatever the leadership role that was shown by the chancellor or others, or whatever economy or the money is pumped into the system, if you don't have the self-discipline, nothing would have succeeded. I want to make this point very clear, and what was the central why Germany could still do it well, because the overwhelming majority of people did adhere to the rules and the laws that was implemented during this management. They very disciplinedly stood out of the supermarket. They wore masks in the trams and buses, and ensured that the 2 meter social distancing was practiced. They were waiting for, even if it took 1 hour, they very patiently was waiting. And many of the industries, the universities, they made sure that the people were working in home office. For example, it's 4 or 5 months now, still I'm in home office. So there was no question about it. So like that, all the industry and everybody said that, yes, it is compulsory and we want to do it. And then, so there was very, very clear self-discipline from the top to the bottom. I think that was one of the very crucial things. In addition, in support to whatever the leadership and the policy decisions that was taken, that was very crucial. In terms of science diplomacy, I see it in a way, normally, unfortunately, most of the time, the science was not funded well because we always have, or the, let's say, the political establishment or the donors always have, okay, now for a short time, you get some money. Once the issue is over, then that's over. Now they realize when the last SARS came, if they would have sustainably funded that research, probably now they would have been in much better position to understand the disease and the preparedness would have been much better. But now they realized, and now they said, for example, in Germany, around 10 years, more than 10 years of sustainable funding is already being promised, and is not only promised, already is being set into the policy motion, and the law is made that the virology and virus research will be funded for a long term, but also the psychological impact during the COVID. What happened to the family? What happened to parents, single parents who were to take care of the children? What happened during this? Whether the violence has increased, or whether how the young people felt. So the social science research and the so-called scientific, the biotechnology or medicinal research, all these things are going to happen. Again, we forget about the whole thing after, let's say, 1 year or 2 years. When the issue is over, we are going to back again to the, to our normal mode and say, okay, now the COVID is gone, let's move on. Because they start to realize there will be such, not exactly like this, but probably there could be other so-called, let's say, the infectious diseases will be coming up in a different form. And so one has to be prepared. And number two, what happened is, in terms of so-called dependency, even country like Germany, which is very highly innovative and very high technology based country, it also felt suddenly we all are running out of, let's say, products. Only one country in the world was supplying for the whole world. And everybody was saying, oh, now we don't have, for example, many universities, they have to switch on to online mode. Here, they didn't have enough, for example, laptops. They didn't have really the technology how to do it, because unfortunately, here the online thing was not really that popular. So suddenly everybody has to do it online. They were just scrambling to find a way how we are going to do it. Though they are managing now, and they manage, but you see, we are speaking about a very modern society. We are speaking about something, a country which is, very advanced. But then still, there are challenges with the digitalization issues as well in such countries as well. And also the availability of the products. So for the masks, for example, they wait for long because they didn't have it or they expected. So everything has to come from one country, and there was huge competition between countries. So they had to change their own industry to produce. For example, there are industries which were producing automobile parts. Those industries had to, at an emergency, give a special funding to change it to produce masks. Today, of course, everybody masks at that point of time, it was a big issue. So, such kind of a thing. So they realized about so-called dependent, self-independent, independent doing it, not depending on others, and those kind of things. They are also thinking about it. But of course, one has to look at this as a long term, but there is also a policy group which is going to look at it, how Germany should not depend on such situations to the outer world. So I think those are things also very important. So I think in all, I would say this is how I look into it. I think it's 1 hour. So I think I would stop here at this point of time, maybe half an hour, sorry, not 1 hour, half an hour. So maybe I would like to stop the first part of it here. If there are, because I don't want to keep on speaking. So I think it should be an interaction as well, if I understand. And so maybe I'll stop this part here. And if there could be an interaction and a discussion, or whether you have, other point of view, other, information, I would be more than happy, so that we can have a very, lively interaction. Thanks very much for the
Thank you, sir. We do have questions. So I now request Shri Arvind Shukla to put across the questions that are there in the chat box.
Good afternoon, Dr. Ramani. I have received the first question from Mr. Amrit himself. He wants to know how curbs on people movement were decided by the establishment during social distancing and all this.
Thanks a lot, Arvind. Can I take maybe as a block 1-2 questions, so that as a block I can do it, or would you prefer one question, one answer, one question, answer?
I think one question, one answer format will be better.
No, absolutely fine. I am either way fine with it. Okay. In terms of curbs, I think even in the after that, the impact study today, it says they should have probably implemented the lockdown 2 weeks before than actually. They did already very early, but now they say maybe we could have done it a little earlier. And in terms of the curbs, I think by the time the curbs was announced, it was more or less, let's say, vaguely clear that the spread of the virus was mostly through the sneezing, or mostly, during the speaking and through saliva, for example, or the tears, or from the nose secretion. Those were the main reasons. And so for them, the only way to stop, because at that point of time, the aerosol particles was on discussion, even today. But the main part was clear. It happens during sneezing, it happens during cough, it happens during, those things. So that time it was clear the only way to stop this, you need to have, let's say, 1.5 to 2 meters, because from the scientific way, they said these tiny particles could not travel more than that. So it would fall down somewhere between this distance, and so it will not be a harm to anyone. But anything less than this distance of 1.5 meter or 2 meter, it would be a danger. So that was very clear. The social distancing, there was no discussion. Scientifically, it was given. And the masks, it was very natural, because the big discussion at that point of time was mask was not even compulsory. Social distancing was, but the mask still was a huge discussion. Even today, the discussion continues. Not many are really convinced that the masks is the right solution. Even today, some states in Germany, they have started the school after the summer vacation. And some states have ordered that during the classes, the children has to wear the mask, the teacher has to wear the mask. So, but there are many who say it's going to be very difficult in such summer, because now in Germany, we are having, for example, in Hanover, we are having 30 degrees summer. So the children has to have the masks all the time, and the teachers. So still there is a discussion on mask, but then later it was more or less agreed that mask is also something, it is a protection. So the actual decision was taken based on the clear scientific, outcome, and that was conveyed to the public also very clearly when the lockdown was announced. So there was more or less, say, agreement among the public that we follow this.
Thank you, Dr. Ramani. My next question is on, you might have noticed that there was an issue of migration of workers in India. So Sushmita wants to know whether there were similar issues in Germany also, and if so, how they were handled.
Thanks a lot, Sushmita. Yes, we do have that issue, not in the scale or the way it was, but certainly in Germany, we normally during summer, let's say during spring and summer, there are certain vegetables and fruits that was harvested, like strawberry or like asparagus. I think many of you know that vegetable asparagus, which is basically under the earth and delicately harvested. And it's really a very, very tough job. And for such things, actually, usually the workers from East European countries are recruited during that time from Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, and other countries. And there was really a concern how it's going to happen. What are we going to do? Whether when we are going to bring them, because it was a lockdown on one side, so even the borders of the European countries was blocked. Only those who want to go to work, they have to provide an evidence that it's an emergency work, they can go. Otherwise, even the borders were closed. So some of these people have to come. Otherwise, the vegetable will be, lost. It will perish, and there is no way there will be a huge loss also to the farmer. So what one can do? So what they did was, it took some time, unfortunately, but then they found a way that the farmer who is going to, let's say, invite these people, they can, organize a special train or a plane, or, if it is close to border, special transport. And these people will come in, they will be tested, and they will make sure they have a separate accommodation. They will be, staying in a separate place, and then they will come, and then in every interval, they will be tested again. So to make sure that it is not spreading, but are also clear that there is no, let's say, import coming from outside, that infection, which wherein it doesn't, let's say, spread within the community where that farming is happening. So these are having this, but it is not like, as I say, one-to-one compare, but we had these issues, and it was handled.
Okay. Next question is from Mr. Bipin. He wants to know whether economic fallout of COVID is a very big concern in Germany, and this he particularly wants to know in the context of an unfortunate suicide of a minister in Germany.
Arvind, I'm sorry, the first part, somehow there was a instable connection. I couldn't hear the first part of the question. Could you please repeat?
Okay. Mr. Vipin wants to know that whether economic fallout of COVID is a very big concern in Germany, and this he wants to know in the context of an unfortunate suicide of a minister in Germany.
Thank you. Yes, that was very unfortunate, but I think later they found out it's not actually much linked to this only COVID issue that the finance minister of Hessen died, but there were other reasons behind it which all came together. But generally, the economic fallout, I would say, yes, it was a heavy, let's say, loss effect on the economy. Even today, still, though Germany is almost back to normal with, restaurants is open and, hotels and everything, but still, they feel that it's going to take some time to recover. But what I would say is there is not really a big, let's say, discussion or really a blame game going on whether this could have been done the other way or not, because that's where I found that leadership and the decision making was very well taken, that considering from the very early phase, the industry was taken into let's say, in the discussions, and they were also properly financed in a certain part. The biggest companies like Lufthansa, or let's say the German railways, all those were, together with the German government, but also European Union, they pumped in a lot of money. Recently also, you might have seen that's more than, let's say, $500 billion is being now given to various countries. Of course, Italy and Spain, which was most affected, was getting the lion's share of it, which is very normal, the other ones. So I think in a financial way, I think many, many new schemes and very appropriate schemes were given to the economy. So the loss was there. Yes, many people say that that the actual situation pre-COVID, the success would not be there probably for the next 2-3 years. But they are all somehow let's say, I would not say happy, but they are satisfied that the best the government could do. And I think slowly the economy seems to be picking up in various sectors.
Thank you, Dr. Ramani. My next question is from Imran. He wants to know how educational institutes in Germany are coping with social distancing norms, and what is government response towards challenges being faced by international students in Germany.
Thank you, Imran. So the first part is basically still all the educational institutions are closed. I'm talking about the higher education institutions. Because anyway, it was closed till, let's say, July, and usually August and September are summer vacation months, let's put it that way. Though the universities are working, but it's mostly exams that are happening, but those exams could happen. So now only they are trying to see what we can do, how we can actually, because there are two kinds of exams. One is the so-called oral exams, and the other one is written exams. So they have to see, because there are certain laws by which the written exam cannot be taken orally. So they need to find a way how the written exams could also be taken orally. So the discussions are on, but the students are not yet allowed to the university. So everything is basically closed, and the staffs are working from home, though the labs and research institutes are working in a phased manner. So with a social distancing in practice, so in a lab, only 2 persons can be there. So from, let's say, morning 8 to 10 or 12, and then they have to leave, and then the next 2 can come. So this way, it's absolutely social distancing, and wherever not required, you work from home or you are not visiting. In terms of schools, it was quite difficult till August, because then it was closed. But then the exams, for example, the 12th exams, board exams, somehow had to take place. And it took place with the social distancing in place, because that cannot be postponed because of admissions and many other things. So it did happen, though the issue was to find a big room or a big space to have the social distancing, but they managed, and they had the 12th exams happened, and then so that's also there. But probably I think the discussion is to show some leniency in terms of the evaluation of those exams, because the children could not really study in a proper way and all those things. So they understood that. So probably I think there will be some leniency in the way they evaluate the whole board marks, let's put it that way. So this is regarding the first part of the question. Second is international students. That's a big challenge, I would say. For example, from India, I do not know really when the international students are going to come to Germany. Those who have a long-term visa, that's no problem, because also you have seen in the papers there is going to be this so-called air bubble arrangement between countries like France, Germany, US, and UK. So I think these are there, but still the problem is in Germany also there is a slight increase in infection these days. And in India, obviously there is some control in certain places, but still it's not into the, in a situation where it is clear. So both countries are still having its own dilemma, whether you want to send or want to receive. This is a diplomatic struggle is going on, I would say, a challenge. So I think I'm not sure, and we from the universities are almost not very optimistic that it's going to be like a normal affair for international students. But the one good thing is we are not stopping any admissions. So the admissions will go on. That means from India, a student gets an admission, but then the coming semester, the student will do the same course online from India. So they are not losing any time. So once the whole thing is relaxed, the student can come to Hanover or any part of Germany, and they can start the course. So the student is not losing any time, but only thing, the presence phase, that the physical presence would be something going to be very difficult.
There is one more question, that is a set of questions from 3 of audiences, Mr. Jagmohan, Mr. Naren, and Mr. Guru Raj. They want to know what are some measures taken by German government which could be replicated by Indian government? and how the things in India can be handled in a better way, given the financial constraints or financial disparities that are between Germany and India.
You have put me into a really a very difficult situation. See, I think I would say that clear financial part is very clear, because what we are speaking about Germany or European Union is something one cannot compare, because they have a different kind of way of putting it on the financial resources or financial muscle. That is very clear. But I think two things you have requested. One is the replication, another is how we can better manage.
Yeah.
I think the replication, I would say one thing that can be replicated very well is the initial, probably it's my only observation. Please forgive me if I am completely wrong, because I am sitting from the outside, other side of the world, and speaking about country not being into the country. Whatever I am speaking about is whatever I'm reading in the media and what I'm speaking to my friends in India, my family in India. I think that from the beginning, probably, if the central federal government and the state governments could have brought in one line, maybe many things could have not been difficult till it is now. I know that there is a huge diversity in Indian context, no doubt about it. A state like Tamil Nadu cannot be compared to Manipur, or Maharashtra cannot be compared to, let's say Gujarat. It's absolutely clear. I'm not telling about that. But for at least what I heard is there was executive circulars that was, released, and lot of, every day there is new decisions was made, but probably the communication of the decisions have not reached people. I think it stayed somewhere, and those who are quite affluent and they could, watch the television, or who could watch the, let's say internet, who can take thing, or those kind of probably had that percentage of people actually got, but many of them, I think, still did not receive that so-called that communication channel was somehow difficult. And whether the federal government and the state governments from the beginning, they came together and said, they all discussed and asked for the opinions and then made the decision. I am not sure whether, because I saw that was very central in Germany, because decision making was done in a very inclusive approach, and also the decision was one and only decision. So there was no decisions, and each and everybody can play to it and things like that. So at the later half, once the whole pandemic was under control, then each state had its own leverage how to change it. That was one thing. And second, I am very sorry to say that, but I told that it was very crucial for at least how I observed in Germany. The self-discipline was very crucial. Unfortunately, I think in Indian context, I don't want to blame any sector, but when I see and also hear from people that certainly people are still probably not very, let's say, assured that this is a very, very dangerous disease. I think still the so-called very easygoing and easy taking, and not much concern for wearing masks or moving around, and those things probably might have contributed to difficulty of the government to implement the laws, because you cannot have a police in every street, you cannot have a bureaucrat everywhere going around, and these are difficulty with the population of the country. I think that played a huge role, and probably I would not really put too much into the issue of the migrant workers. I think probably there were issues, but I don't think so that was the central. But overall, I think the population did not react to that sensitivity and the sensibility, which would have been a lot of help, I would say.
Thank you, Dr. Ramani. I think we may take a few questions more, or you would like to proceed with second part of your talk.
No, I think basically the things I am speaking about is something also coming what I wanted to speak. I think probably questions and interactions could be a good way so that, you know, it's also probably new things coming out of it. So I would very much prefer if it is okay for you people.
We were interested to listen from you more. So that's a.
No, it's absolutely fine. As you say it, Amrit, how we can do it? How do you say what would be, or how the audience preferred? I mean,
I think we have got some questions left with Arvind, so we can have a few more questions, and then probably whatever time will be left, we'll leave it to you to take it forward.
okay, I think that's a good way. Yeah, sure.
Okay, Aryesh wants to know what kind of loans and other financial assistance Germany has provided during this pandemic to its people.
Right. The first thing was basically or let's say non-refundable, in the sense I would say no need to repay the loan, was the so-called, what I said, that you know, the Kurzarbeit for the employers. Basically the employers who had to, because they had to shut the whole industry, and so there was no income and they had to cancel. There was no actually orders coming from outside. So for that, the government jumped in, and so they paid around 65 to 70% of the salary of each employee who are put under the so-called, you know, short work. If an industry has, let's say, 100% of, you know, workforce, and of the 100%, only 30% had work, and the rest 70% do not have work, then these 70% workers still will get their salary, let's say around 90% of the 100% salary, but out of that, the government will pay 70% and the company has to pay 30%. So this way, the company is, you know, let's say, relieved from the huge burden that they have to keep the employers employed, but they cannot pay them. So I think this was one biggest thing. Second, the restaurants and, you know, the hotels and any establishments, the VAT, value added tax, was reduced from 19, I think, to 15% or something like that. 4 to 5% they have reduced the complete VAT, and that was something came to some extent very good. And the students were given monthly 600 euro loan, normally with interest, but in this case without interest. I think till March 2021 they can have this special loan, and some of the states had non-refundable, non-repayable loan, so they gave 200 to 300 like that to the students as well. And the so-called taxes, for example, payable to the, you know, kindergarten and all those things, those are completely waived off, so that for, I think, the next year they don't have to pay. And some of the places you don't have to pay, it is covered, and some you had to pay and then reclaim. But anyway, this whole thing is now scrapped or waived off, so that family, it's also completely cleared of the burden, that though they're not going to the school, going to the kindergarten, or, you know, and for example, universities, for those students who did not attend, they got the semester ticket money back and all those things. So there are many things that happen for various stakeholders, and I think it was quite good that this way it's moving.
Okay. Amrit wants to know how non-COVID patients were managed in hospital during peak days of pandemic in Germany.
There was, to my extent, I don't think so there was a huge problem, because the COVID designated areas were very, very clear. And so, you know, basically there was other place where it was, because the only thing that happened was non-invasive treatment. Everything that has to do with surgery and operations and everything was postponed. And so they have to come to the hospital at all. And for example, the practice, the doctors, they were all told to do it telemedicine. Basically, if I have a cough and cold, normally I need to get an attest from the doctor to, you know, submit for my leave. but they said you don't have to come. You just call through telephone and you say what are the symptoms, and then basically then you can say that you don't have to even submit that you are ill. So for the 3-4 months, basically you just have to write to an employer that you are ill, and that's fine. Later you can submit the thing. So in this way, you don't have to go to the clinic, you don't have to go to the hospital. So this way, the huge crowd was actually not in front of the hospitals or clinic, and most of the non-invasive surgeries or non-invasive treatments were postponed. So basically, it was restricted only to the very major, let's say, treatments and COVID area. So it was clearly separated. So I think they managed quite well.
Another set of questions is again on comparing situation in Germany and India. Deepika wants to know how far we can compare Germany with India having such a big population. And Vijay Lakshmi Khuntia wants to know, given the hygienic and sanitation conditions in India, whether a comparison is possible. These are the questions.
Okay, thank you. I would say that I think, see, we all know population is you see, population can be always, it's my personal opinion, population can be always seen both sides. You can always see it as a burden, but also you can see it as a huge potential. It depends on what context we see and what context we are looking at it. Currently, yes, this is an issue, but given we know that the population is going to be this way, and we have a very, very diverse population, which let's say who have access to information, who do not have access to information. And so I think there are a lot of things. For example, let me take a very simple example. I am coming from a small village, hamlet, I would say, just with 800 people, around 20 kilometers from Tanjavur, which is a district in Tamil Nadu, south. And so, which basically it's a rice field. They call it rice bowl or south. He said to me that there was no issue in that village from the beginning. There was no panic and everything, because she said the president and the local panchayat took so much care that the president visited every house and made sure that everybody is taking care and everybody is taken care. And even when the tokens are given or the ration, whatever it is, they came and they delivered to the home, and they asked if they need any medicine. They are missing some medicine. There were people who went out and bought and then brought to home, and they made sure who is entering the village, whether there are new people, so that they also looked at it. So what I'm trying to say is, I hear a lot of things that the panchayat level, they did extremely work in many places. The local villages and many places, our so-called decentralized system, it's a very positive thing if the given power truly implemented by the local panchayat. They could do a lot, and they did a lot also. One has to give that credit to them as well. And when we looked at the whole scenario, you see most of the thing happened, or most of the heavy infections still revolve around the cities or big second-tier cities, let's say, and which is normal, common, because that's where the mobility happens. That's where airports and train stations and many things are there. So I would say, though one cannot compare, but one can look at it. Why not we look at this crisis as our opportunity for the future? I would look at it every time I say this is. We have to really make sure that the awareness is created. At least to my opinion, this awareness was very late. Even now, I am not 100% sure whether really the people are aware at all levels that this is a very dangerous disease. And this is something we have to be very careful about. Though I would not say anything, in terms of what the government does or not does, because to my extent, the government can only do so much. I think then it is up to the community and the people has to take up and then further do it. At the local level, it has to break. See, even in Germany, the federal government can issue laws and rules, but the local county government and even below the ward councillors, they are the ones finally to take it up and create the awareness, bring it to the house doors, and the society has to put things together. And we did a lot of good things as well. For example, community kitchen was organized, a fantastic initiative. So that I knew that migrant workers in many places, the educational institutions came up and they offered their classrooms, they offered their whole institutes for them to be there, to be fed and taken care of as well. So there were, blickering of lot of, good initiatives happened, but somehow I have a difficulty whether the strategy for awareness could have been done much more coordinated way. I would not say it was not done, it was done, but whether it could have been done more coordinated way so that the population somehow are segregated at the very early stage and to have been tested and everything. I understand the testing kits took time, those all things, because in Germany, the success was also mainly due to the testing. It was one of the earliest countries to have tested lot and lot. Even UK was struggling to get things on control, and US and many countries, but Germany was very, very starting and very initially started to test very much. So population, yes, it's an issue, but I think a strategy and planning plays a very crucial and very early intervention is very important in any management. If you want to intervene on certain things, you have to take some visionary approach and you have to say in 4 months, if this is the situation, then I have to intervene right at this moment. And then I need to make sure my plan goes from the back, not from the bottom, so that I know when 6 months, I don't need to have any infection, what I will do right now. So I think this probably would help if we have to get the crisis once again, how we can do it. Second, with respect to hygiene, yes, it's an issue. But in this case, I would say, I think India has made a big stride in terms of primary health and hygiene to a large extent, but still we have a huge problem. I don't want to deny that, but how want to make sure that can change? I think it's only by education. From the kindergarten, you need to make sure that the hygiene concept is implemented at the home, family, and where you go. And one self-discipline that the people have to follow that. Unless otherwise, any amount of policy, any amount of law will just be a watershed moment. You cannot really do it. So I think it is up to the educational ways. Maybe we have to look into the way of education, whether we are really doing it right way or whether the education is really bringing the so-called hygiene and things that is ultimately is going to decide your life or death. Those has to be probably at the central pillar and central role in any education. Probably that is one thing, maybe it's a time to rethink and reinvent it.
Thank you. Mr. Jagmohan wants to know how our approach to deal with COVID-like infection likely to be different in future.
I would say the first thing we have to do is we should do long study, impact study, which has to run for the next years, probably to exactly look at what the medical establishments were doing, how prepared were the medical establishments, and how prepared for the local governments and the state governments, and what are the so-called resources that we had in hand or we need to have in such kind of difficulties. Our hospital infrastructure has to be very, very much studied to make sure that what are the things that we don't have and where we are really, and maybe we have to develop, let's say, another 50-year plan or 40-year plan, whatever it is, so that, you know, these things doesn't happen just in one budget and then forgotten, rather than we have to sustainably invest for many, probably decades, to make sure that this is something happening gradually, but very focused, so that these things are, their specialized hospitals in such dealing with some such things has to be, constructed or part of any established, already existing hospitals, let's say in 50 kilometers radius diameter, so that basically people are there into that, so that they don't have to rush, for example, for everything to Ahmedabad or Delhi or Chennai in that state, rather than each and everyone can take things to that in the next second tier cities or third tier cities. I think those are very, very crucial, so that we have to do a long study on many things that make sure we understand the gravity of the problem and what we have done and what are the things that worked and what are the things that did not work, and where we really had less resources and where we had to pump in more resources, standing resources, so that whether the pandemic happens or doesn't happen, probably so-called national disaster management, those kind of things, or these to be even strengthened. Probably we are very much prepared. For example, these days I am really very happy to see, for example, in Orissa recently, there was not even a single death, even the cyclone came. So that was so well prepared, because based on the experience on the last years and the very good management. So probably like that we learn, but then for that we need to have sustainable budget, sustainable funding, and sustainable study program. Research has to happen over the years, and we don't forget again next year when things are fine and normal, there is no COVID existing. Then we are having a big, big problem.
My next question is from Sushmita. She wants to know, once the hopefully the vaccine comes and things are back to normal, whether you see a permanent shift in work culture after this pandemic experience once the things get normal.
I strongly see the indications are there that home office is a very good alternative, and also probably many would prefer to do that, especially the family where they have small children or the children to take care of, or they have elder people to take care of at home. Those people would opt for home office, because there is a lot of study, at least I can say about Germany, that more than 7% of the workers who have been in home office very much approve that the efficiency has grown, and also the employers very much look at it. This is a very good way forward. And for example, one of the biggest company like SAP, many of you know, and Siemens, Bosch, they're all putting majority of the workers to be in home office at least for 3 days per week to start with. And so I think the new thinking has started, of course, given the very good availability of internet, very good availability of the end, instruments like laptop and all the secure server and many other things. But I think this probably is going to make a difference. And I am pretty sure at least partially the way we work and the way we converse might change. But there is a small but also. There are trade unions and many others who also sign warning that this could mean that in home office, the people work not looking at the time. Sometimes you can work too much rather than normally when you are in office, you go at 9, you come back at 5. But being in home office and in front of your laptop, probably you keep on working in between, so that, or during the time, so that you never know, but probably the number of work hours increases, or sometimes the employers probably would request you to work more. But these are all, things to be discussed, but I see as a positive trend.
Thank you. One interesting question I have received is, did you notice any shortcomings in the planning and preparedness in German context?
I would say, let's put it, that's what I said in the early, it was not very perfect. Probably there has been some issues. Or let's say, part of the people look at it in a different way. For example, many people still feel that opening up for tourism was too early, because the flights started to move in and the infections are now again growing. So many people say that it was too early to have started the tourism, but there are others say it was not due to tourists rather than people who do not follow discipline. So they are the ones who are doing it. So there was a little bit of difficulty because there are some states which are dependent 90% on tourism, and there are some states which are dependent 90% on agriculture. So they said that we cannot keep the lockdown long. We need tourists. They put a lot of pressure on the central leadership so that there was some rules that was especially given for the local states and local economy. So there are people who criticize, then you have a problem because you cannot say from one state the people should not go to the other state, then you will start spreading. Second issue was school. There was a huge discussion because like in India, it's a concurrent list. So the schools are taken care of by the states. So that means the state will decide when the school is opening and what the school is going to do and all those things. So there are also a lot of discussions why some states you have to wear the mask, where one state you don't have to wear the mask, everything. So overall, I would say yes, there are small things in a whole management, but I would not say there was very, let's say, central issue that had to lead to a huge disagreement. No, I haven't observed nor I have seen.
I'm done with most of the questions. So, Amritji.
Yeah. So, Dr. Ramani, is there any other aspect of the German experience with the pandemic that you would like to share, which we feel?
I didn't. Thanks, Amrit. But I think few points I wanted to say, but yeah, fortunately that came up in the questions as well, which I wanted to touch upon actually. So I think particularly to say, I had only 2 points I wanted to say. The one thing is the role of the European Union, which just touched upon, but I thought that I'll just take a few minutes to address that part so that, it's very clear where the whole support comes also from, because Germany played a very central role in, let's say, helping the European Union also to put together strong policies, because obviously Germany also the motor of the economy, and also it is the let's say experienced leadership of Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, played a very important role. You have seen recently that there was unprecedented discussions that happened, which was normally had to finish in one day, negotiations for releasing the funds, but it extended up to 4 to 5 days, which was unprecedented in the history of the European Union. There was so much of conflict between the heads of the European nations that they do not know how really to come over this, because some of the nations, they wanted to make sure that the money is not given as so-called grant in aid, so it's not repaid, but some of the nations said no, we are not having that much money, and European Union should show solidarity, so one has to give the money grant in free. So this happened night and day for 4 days, and there was no unified front. Finally, the Germany, and also assisted by the France, they came out with some kind of a negotiation formula between those states, which said that they want real, let's say, so-called tied-in grant in aid, so that certain reforms has to happen, and then we will pay. And so finally, it was very crucial. So at that point, I wanted to say that there also Germany showed its exemplary leadership in making sure that such a big negotiations and in the European Union for funding the member countries came to a conclusion so that the money can be released. I think most of the things I did cover, and very interesting questions and very important parts. And yeah, I would like to only say big thanks to everyone, and also to Amrit for the last days to have been coordinating the whole thing, and to Professor Kumar and Professor Anil, and for Arvind also moderating, Professor Arvind for moderating the whole discussions and questions. And I hope sincerely that this time that you spent was useful, at least to a fraction, that you could take some things that you probably could implement as you are. There are many government officers, senior officers are there, maybe in your policy making, or maybe you would like to visit Germany for yourself at some point of time to make, to see how things were planned at that point of time, to take some examples that could be implemented back home as well. And many of the students who are here, probably one or other ideas that for your projects or some of things could happen. So with great humility, I would like to say big thanks to IIM and to every one of you for giving me this honor and opportunity.
I have received one more question, Dr. Ramani, and it's more like seeking your advice. Raki wants to know, during these troubled times, is it a good time to join a professional course like MBA?
I don't want to really create any loss to IIM in terms of their having anybody, but I
probably in the context of Germany, I think the question would be there, that whether it is wise to do a course in Germany.
Okay, so okay, then IIM is saved. No, in terms of Germany, let's say if I would be in your position, I would do a wait and watch situation. If it is possible, then please do join next year, because all the universities, we are planning at the moment to start our semester in winter normally, but we ourselves are not very sure about it, because we do not know whether the autumn season is going to bring back because it is conducive time for a virus normally in rainy time and everything. So maybe it's going to do that. We do not know. So, and also many students do think about other ways, but you can in specific in terms of management. Germany is not at all very, okay, let's put it the other way. MBA is not something in Germany people know, because MBA is something they do not know about it at all. There are only very few institutes that offer MBA in Germany, because MBA is something that is, they think more from the US. They don't have it in normal universities. They don't have. There are some institutes which has MBA, but management per se is usually combined into the economics and other masters that happen. So it would be nice, but you have to look at it as the point of view. There are many different kind of management courses. Basically, it's very specialized. There is a banking, there is an aviation sector, there is more sector-wise, management. It's not one management that fits all. Here is more specialized. So maybe you can find something on that front. But if you want the question of whether you want to join now, if I would be in your position, would encourage very much to see if there are good courses in Germany, you join, but maybe next year if it is possible. Otherwise, you can also do it this year if permission, if the situation permits.
Thank you, Dr. Bala and Arvindji. I would now request Jayant to propose a vote of thanks. It was a very nice discussion we had with you, Dr. Bala.
Thank you, Amrit sir. Good evening to our honorable speaker, Dr. Balasubramaniam Ramani sir, and all the participants. We from the PGPPM batch of IIM Bangalore would like to thank Dr. Ramani this evening for delivering such a great talk. During the talk, sir, you have beautifully described us the value and the role of the political framework plays, and how seeing through a multi-stakeholder perspective is crucial during a crisis like COVID. The central role played by the government in Germany with the guidance of the scientific society and the health sector in a federal system was very beneficial for us to analyze the situation from the Indian perspective. The examples cited for analyzing different measures taken by the government from the different stakeholders like the elderly population, students, supermarkets, and different industries gave us a full view how policy interventions at the right time can guide a country smoothly through a pandemic like COVID. Sir, the point of self-discipline is very relevant for any policy framework to work, and how it affects the implementation of policies were very relevantly emphasized by you, sir. So you have also deliberated that the need for an increasing sustainable funding for the development of scientific knowledge and the role that it will play in the future was very authentic, and it was very rightly placed, sir. And in the end, I'd like to thank you, sir, for taking so many questions and answering all those questions in such a detailed manner, and explaining each and every answer in such a way that we were able to gain from it in the best possible way. In the end, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to Dr. Ramani for giving for giving us time and opportunity to interact with him in such a free manner, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thanks very much to everyone, and I wish all well. And yeah, thanks, Amrit, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Ramani.
sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.